I was interning as much as I could, but I kind of came across the same thing of like, how do I break into this? How can I get started? So the first thing I did was
Hello, and welcome back to Fashion Founders, the podcast. My name is Victoria Smith, and this week I'm joined by Sarah Walker, who you might know on Instagram as Styled Sara. She began to gain a TikTok following through her outfit of the day videos and sharing about her role as a buyer at Revolve. She is now a full-time content creator and fashion consultant, and just a few days ago released her collection with Nordstrom and Wave. She has really great advice for anyone who wants to break into the fashion industry. She didn't study fashion in school and had only one experience in retail before applying to her first internship. So if you're looking for your very first steps into the industry, she has really great tips. We also talk about her work as a content creator and the unique perspective that she brings having worked on the business side of a fashion brand. We referenced a few times the episode I did with Nicole Reisman, the director of influencer marketing and events at Dolce Vita. So I would definitely recommend listening to that if you're also interested in the content side of things. And Nicole had pointed out that one of the groups of content creators she was really excited about were girls that had corporate fashion careers and then start doing content. And Sarah is such a great example of that. She is having so much success, and she brings us behind the scenes of how she got started, how she kept it up, and how she's made it into the business that it is now. And going into some details around, do you need management, salary transparency, and I really appreciated the honesty that she brought to the conversation and sharing that she's kind of figuring everything out as she goes, and it's a lot of trial and error, which I think is nice to hear. I would highly recommend following Sarah on TikTok, Instagram, Substack. I think she has some of the best style, and I think you'll see here too some of the best advice on how to get started in fashion. So let's get into the episode. I also wanted to share a tool that I learned about during LA Tech Week called Dupay. If you are a creator, influencer, freelancer, own a small business, or an agency, you have likely faced the problem of having a late or unpaid invoice. Dupay is a subscription-based service that helps creators recover unpaid invoices and get paid. With 87% of creators facing a payment issue at some point, it is more likely than not that you have faced some sort of issue with getting paid and getting your money's worth of work. It can also be really awkward and frustrating to have these conversations and follow-ups with clients. That's where Dupay comes in. And Grace, the founder of Dupay, is leveraging her legal expertise and background in advocacy to create an affordable and effective solution. They have recovered over $450,000 of invoices, ranging from $47 to $100,000, helping creators and business owners get paid. I think this is such a useful tool for anyone working for themselves. Dupay is there to be a third party that helps you navigate these awkward conversations, getting ghosted, and not knowing what your rights are. They also have great tools if you're just getting started, like an invoice generator and a contract checker. You can find them at dupayme.com, which is DUPAYME. And I do have a code for podcast listeners for $25 off their annual subscription. Use code Victoria25 in all caps and get paid for your work. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. I know you just flew back from New York and you launched a collection with Nordstrom.
Yes, yesterday. Well, actually 2 days ago now on Thursday, which is super exciting.
So you've been busy.
I've been busy. I was actually in New York. The primary reason was really for Bridal Fashion Week. Okay. I got engaged and now I'm doing all things bridal. So when I was there, the collection launched. We did a little dinner in New York and the collection felt very like holiday city. So it was actually perfect. It was in New York.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to hear about that. And your now work that you do under Styled Sara.
Yes.
But I would love to start with the beginning of your fashion career.
Definitely.
I know you were at Revolve, but how did you get there? What was the journey?
So I have worked in fashion for a decade now in various ways. I was in sales, styling. What else did I do? Sales, styling, PR, editorial, and then at Revolve buying. So I kind of was building off a lot of different experiences. I went to USC and then I actually interned at Forward in styling in college. So from there, when I graduated college, I knew I wanted to be in buying. I tried all these other areas of fashion and loved them and learned so much. But I actually had shadowed a buyer at Nordstrom in high school because Nordstrom's based in Seattle. I'm from Seattle. So I shadowed a buyer. I hadn't actually officially tried it, but loved learning about it. And I was like, okay, I think that's what I want to do. So when I graduated college, I then was really set on getting a buying position. I was interviewing for a couple buying assistants at different places, landed the Revolve one, and then was on that team for 3 years. And buying is such a cool area of fashion. And then I'm kind of here I am today in an entrepreneurial role. I am content creator. I do some fashion consulting and a little bit of styling. I've actually stepped away from styling a little bit. I mean, it's my background, my roots really in fashion, but stepped away from styling a little bit. I just enjoy consulting and my content side of things more.
For some people who might not really know what a buyer position actually does, I feel like it's one of those things that maybe sounds more glamorous. Then you get to the role and you're like, oh, I didn't realize the spreadsheet aspect or this part. So what was kind of like the day-to-day in that role?
Most definitely. It's actually still to this day one of my most asked questions of what does a buyer do? And funny enough, I remember when I was researching for this role to be in a buying assistant in a buyer role, you can't really search what does a buyer do on the internet. And so the only way I really figured it out was by informational interviews, interviewing people. This is a tip if you're interested in buying. I don't know if it's still around. I should have researched it, but Business of Fashion used to have this like buying and merchandising online course. I believe it was free, you signed up for it, but that was really something that I think when I was interested in being in a buying role, I did this online course and then I went back to the recruiters and said, hey, I'm aware I don't have buying experience. I've shadowed a buyer and done this online course. I'm doing all that I can to be educated in this area. Like, I'm really excited about this. But it's still to this day one of my most asked questions. And really, buying is a super cool part of fashion industry because to kind of like simplify it, you're creating assortments on a big scale. So you're curating, I was in the denim space, but I was buying certain denim pieces from different brands and bringing it to the site for then the customer to come on the site and be like, oh, instead of looking at 50 pairs of Levi's jeans you would see on the Levi's site, you're looking at 12 or whatever it may be. So you're kind of curating this assortment for your customer. So there's a lot of knowledge on knowing who the customer is. I mean, obviously you're buying for that person. So the Revolve girl is who I was buying for. And that's a specific customer compared to maybe a Shopbop or a Nordstrom. So you really have to know your customer. There's a lot of data involved about what has worked well in the past. Has that trend performed well? Has that style performed well? Has that wash performed well? There's a lot of different details and data that you kind of look at. A lot of it's also trend knowledge. You have to know what's coming up, trend forecasting. Buying is just a really cool place because it's kind of this culmination of really interesting areas of you're seeing the new stuff, but you're also really working with what you know and what you know works well for that customer.
I often think of Rachel Green and Friends,
yes.
buyers, like my picture of a buyer. So it's interesting to learn what the day-to-day is like. What do you think, and you mentioned the course that you did through BOF, best prepared you to work in the fashion industry? Because a lot of the questions I get are like, what should I be studying in school? Like, does my degree matter? Like, what should my internship be? Are there certain keywords I just like have to have on my resume? And I'd love to get your take on that.
Definitely. I mean, I went to college only having worked on the sales floor at Nordstrom, knowing I wanted to be in fashion. But I had this background sales experience, which, by the way, I think is so important. I feel like you're on the floor, sales floor, working with customers, figuring out what they actually want to buy. So you're kind of having this like knowledge of the real day-to-day of what's working and what people are buying. So when I went to college, I knew I wanted to be in fashion, but I hadn't really had any experience besides that. So I was interning as much as I could, but I kind of came across the same thing of like, how do I break into this? How can I get started? So the first thing I did was College Fashionista, and I wrote a couple blog posts for them, which was, again, I think something you could just sign up for online at the time. I'm not sure. This was now, I don't know, nearly 10 years ago. So I'm not sure what the current day, what there is now.
Yeah, equivalent.
But yeah, exactly. But I did that. And from there, I was able to get an internship at Who What Wear because I was able to show something for it of like, here's my writing. I'm writing a little bit. And pretty much I think in the fashion industry, you just need to take baby steps in any way that you can. Join a club, just put something on the resume so that when you interview, you can be like, okay, while I don't actually maybe have this exact experience, I can speak to it. I'm writing in my free time. I'm doing trend knowledge. I'm assisting, maybe doing something, maybe sales experience. But I just think fashion's a lot about taking what you know, but also just being eager and ready to learn. But that's really how I broke in. I joined the fashion club at USC, to your point of if what you study in college matters or doesn't. USC did not have a fashion major or minor at the time when I was in college. So I did communications and consumer behavior, which are kind of, there's definitely things that are applicable from what I learned, but not actually fashion study. But I think it was a lot of coffee chats, reaching out to people, just being really excited, learning a lot. I went to every fashion association meeting, I think is what the club was called. And that's where I met the Revolve recruiter. So I went in with my resume. I think I printed it out. I handed it to her after, followed up with an email. Just really eager, but I think it's really baby steps. There's not going to be one probably big thing initially that you break into. Maybe if you're lucky, but I think a lot of it's just like reaching out, trying everything that you can, and kind of spinning that in interviews.
Totally. And I think the fashion club is such a good one because it's probably free to join.
Exactly. I assume most colleges have some sort of fashion club equivalent, even if they don't have a major or minor.
Yeah. Or better yet, start one. And then you're like, I'm the founder of the fashion club.
Exactly. Exactly. But things like that, totally. Even if you don't have real work experience in that area, you can at least talk to that and be like, I'm this excited about fashion that I joined this club or started this club. So definitely.
Yeah. I love that tip.
Yep.
And so you were at Revolve and then you started doing your content. At what point were you like, oh, wow, this is taking off and kind of could be its own thing?
So I guess I can go back in time. I started my Instagram page in the pandemic. So I graduated 2020 and nobody in fashion was hiring. So I really felt this lack of creativity. I graduated college and there was nothing really for me to do. And I'm somebody who likes to be booked and busy. So I felt this kind of lull in my life of like, okay, what am I doing? I can't really do anything. Nobody's hiring. I was really, really ready to work. So I started a blog, Styled Sara blog. I think was the first thing I did. And then I started to do gift guides. It was around the time of the holidays. So I did that. But then I started Styled Sara Instagram. I had my own personal Instagram that I'd had throughout high school and college. But then I started this new one because I really wanted it to be a creative outlet to post pictures I'd seen on Pinterest. And I did these like buying guides to begin with of, what is it? It was like buy or pass, something like that, or splurge or save. So I did like little polls on my Instagram. I think I had all of 100 followers for the first 6 months, but it was just kind of a creative outlet for me. So by the time I got hired at Revolve, I had this starter Instagram that was really, truly creative outlet. And so when I was working at Revolve, that's kind of where my coworkers started following me. I then kept just posting things that were inspiring to me, my outfits, and saw organic growth. I worked at Revolve for 3 years, and really there was a lot of growth between the start of Revolve and by the time I had left Revolve. But I think people were interested in my corporate, quote unquote, career in fashion. So I think that was part of the reason I grew. I also started posting on TikTok. That's really where I saw the growth, was through TikTok, outfits of the day. And it was never a plan to take it full time. That was not why. In fact, I had started the Instagram really just like out of boredom and finding something. But what I'd always really wanted was that corporate fashion career. Yeah. So when I was working at Revolve, I was living the dream. I was like, oh my gosh, here I am in my job that I've always wanted to work in and buying. I'd been there 3 years. I was kind of excited to grow and try something else in fashion. I actually did a small stint in a merchandising role. But really what led to the leap of taking it full time wasn't so much that I was like, oh my gosh, I want to take this full time. It was that the roles I knew I weren't going to be in for a long time, like the merchandising role wasn't completely my calling. I'm glad I tried it. But I just was like, okay, if there's one time to work for myself, I guess let me try it. I at the time, I want to say I had like 40,000 followers on Instagram. So it wasn't in a place where it made sense to take a full time. It just made sense in the fact that I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my kind of corporate career. So I left my merchandising role and kind of fell on my social media as something I could do via over the summer and post and have fun and try being my own boss and see how that felt. And sure enough, I gave myself 6 months through the summer. I think I quit my job in merchandising in early May 2024. And I told myself in October I'd look for another job. And sure enough, that August rolled around and I was busier than ever. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, this could be a full-time thing. Yeah. Like working for myself, this could be something. So from there, I've just been doing it. It's been more rewarding than I could have ever imagined. I think coupled with my fashion consulting, it's been super exciting. I still feel like I have this creative side where I'm kind of in the nitty gritty of still fashion things while also, I mean, I've just gotten so many experiences and opportunities through social media that I would have never gotten, not to say never, but that I might not have if I had stayed kind of in my buying track.
Yeah. I can see you being like a creative director at some brand later on.
I think that was always something I wanted to do. Yeah. And now I've just accepted I could get there in a untraditional way. Whereas before I was like, okay, I'll climb the corporate career ladder at a fashion brand and kind of get in that role that way. And now I've accepted, okay, the way I am going in the fashion industry, might not have been done before. I might need to just like do what I'm doing, lean into my intuition and get somewhere like that. But I think that definitely would be the goal, would be the plan for sure.
Like a J. Crew or something.
I mean, a dream. I love J. Crew. Yeah, it'd be a dream.
What steps did you take to make what you're doing now feel like this is a business? I have to work certain hours. Did you go and set up an LLC and file that? Did you get a new email? Like, what were those little things like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I'm working for myself. This isn't a small passion project that I don't take seriously.
You're asking all the good questions because I think, no, seriously, because I think when I had first quit my job, it was a lot of not taking it seriously. It was like, okay, again, I'm going to do social media for 6 months. It'll be fun. It's what I've been doing on the side for the past 3 years. Like, nothing's really going to change. And it wasn't until I kind of saw this like uptick of A, work, and B, kind of opportunities that I would have never thought would be possible that I then said, oh, like this could really be. Because to be honest, I think when I quit my job, I was like, social media is so fun. Social media is so fun. But this doesn't feel real. Kind of it felt like this still side hustle, just like a fun. And it's still very fun, but now it is obviously a business. So when I started taking it seriously, I made an LLC. I just kind of leaned in to this being my day to day. I will say the one thing about social media is that it never shuts off. So for me, that's fine for me because I genuinely love creating content and being on socials. And again, it's been nothing but such a blessing to me. But I will say that's something that like is different than prior when I was working more of that 9 to 6 job where I was able to kind of log off mentally. Yeah. And now I have friends who work in more corporate settings and then they'll check their social media after work and they're like, oh, I get to unwind and check social media. And I'm like, okay, well, it is unwind. To me, I just love it. I really do. But it is different in that way. I am taking it more seriously. I now travel with work. I've now had creative opportunities of doing co-branded things and collections. So there definitely is a business side of it. There's definitely things that I'm not as strong, like not my strengths that come in with owning my own business. Yeah. But it's all really fun. I'm learning every day. I still feel like I'm like, a year and a half after quitting my job officially from last year. And I still feel like I'm learning so much about what it means to be kind of my own business owner. So it's really good, but it's definitely like, I had to navigate that. And so your questions you're asking of like, when did you figure out that it was going to be like a real business? It was started with the LLC and then I've since hired an assistant, which has been helpful. But it's just kind of, I'm still in shock a little bit that it is my day-to-day, my life, my business.
Yeah. I think hiring someone is one of the biggest moments of like, oh my gosh, their salary is because of me. And like, that means I have to do more work to make sure that they get paid and get to like pay rent. And that's a really big moment.
Without a doubt. That was something where when I realized I like actually needed help kind of day to day and things with content specifically is really the thing that I need the most help with. But I was like, oh my gosh, this again, it kind of just feels like these things every single day I'm like learning, but I'm realizing, wow, here I am like doing it. Also backtracking, another moment kind of where it felt more serious. I had never had a manager throughout my career in social media, especially when I was working at Revolve. So kind of the side, social media on the side. I never had a manager. I was doing it all myself. So when I would get a brand deal, maybe on TikTok, I was negotiating on behalf of myself. And now when I had quit, I just signed with management. So so that also was kind of a moment of like, oh, wow, this is something I need and something that like makes it feel more real.
The question I'm curious about with management is like, you are a business owner. Like I feel like I see a lot of creators that way and like you do your consulting. Does it kind of make you feel almost more like a talent in a way? And is that like a weird paradox?
For sure. I mean, I think the management side of things, my manager specifically, and I can't speak on management in general, my manager handles all talent side things. So brand deals and collaborations, things that really have to do with any social aspect. So if I'm posting it on socials, I don't know if it's that clear of a line, but for the most part, whereas all consulting is my own business. And so it's kind of twofold to your point. Yes, it is interesting because I do feel like talent in that way with management, but I guess at the end of the day, that is kind of what it is. Yeah. And then the consulting part is really via myself and just working on it whenever things come up. So it's great. I actually really, really love having the consulting side alongside of my social media. I love having one foot in the door with still kind of the things I used to love on my buying job. So it's great. I mean, that's definitely one of the most rewarding parts.
Yeah. I also recently have been having someone help with like partnerships, and it's honestly so nice to have someone else do that side of things of like negotiating and money is kind of awkward. And then you get to have like a really authentic relationship with the people that you're
1 million
meeting and
percent.
connecting with. And it just, I think it makes it more authentic to like
Precisely.
take the money out of it.
100%. And like, I wouldn't change negotiating on behalf of myself or anything. Like, I thought that was really valuable at the time, because then I kind of figured out, I started A, creating relationships, and B, figuring out what that was like.
Yeah.
But it's really a relief to not have to do that, because again, we were speaking about Dolce Vita earlier because you're friends with Nicole and you had her on the podcast. But something like that, like, I'm so excited to be friends with Nicole and go on trips with them and still have this relationship with the brand, but not be negotiating on behalf of myself, which I did, again, now 3 or 4 years ago. But now it's nice to kind of take that aspect off of it.
Totally. And speaking of Nicole, so in our episode, she said that one of the content creator groups she's most excited about are girls who had 9-to-5s and then transition into working for themselves, like you. And she said that they have really loyal communities. They build this trust. She's like, people just love following this journey and it's more relatable, and that they understand the business side of working with brands and making content, and like how there has to be a value add for it, right? What, on your perspective as being a content creator in that way, has really helped you stand out to brands? Like, what do you think you understand more that maybe someone who hasn't worked at a Revolve, for example, might just not grasp right away?
I guess twofold. All I can say, well, I think having this background in fashion, true work experience, has absolutely benefited me in my social media career, without a doubt, whether it's being able to speak the same language as brands, especially when it comes to these collaborations I'm doing. I'm able to speak certain things like lead time, minimums, especially when I'm creating a product, like my most recent Nordstrom Wave collab, as well as my Reformation. I'm able to ask certain questions that I think come from this buyer mindset that is really helpful. So that's been really beneficial, especially in more of the creative processes I've been in. But then in terms of my social media following, I think people, again, initially really enjoyed following me on social media to see what I was wearing to an office, kind of to know what I was up to. I would post my market appointments when I'd go out to market and see what's out there and kind of post all the new product. So that's something I think people were invested in. And personally, I like following other fashion girls that have had these careers, because I think they have this kind of knowledge and expertise that they can bring to then their social media that I think kind of shows through. And again, I think also their personal brand is echoed off this experience they've had in the past, which is super exciting and fun. I think now it'll forever be a part of who I am, and I think it's just kind of a different approach to social media when you have these different fashion experiences in the background.
Is there anything you've learned throughout all this? You're like, oh my God, I can't believe my first year I like messaged a brand that way, or like nothing crazy, I'm sure, but there's things I've done where I'm like, oh wow, thank God I learned not to do that anymore.
Totally. I like nothing, 1,000,000%. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but yes, like I feel like I said, every day I'm learning so much that what I would have done a year ago, maybe I wouldn't do today. But that being said, I have learned that unapologetically promoting myself or pitching myself has paid off, even in the senses of my collaborations or experiences I've had, or even fashion consulting. I kind of, not super intently, but I'm like, oh, I would be super interested in doing this with you guys. Just a very casual way of saying something. And you never know what pitching yourself can do. So I think that's something that, to your point, I probably maybe wouldn't go about some of these things the exact same way of like pitching myself. I've seen some of my DMs that I'm now friends with these people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, me saying, hey, like, I love your brand, can I work with you, is maybe not exactly how I do it today. But at the same time, I'm like, everything has happened for a reason. I've learned from everything. So yes and no. Yes, but I can't think of anything specifically, but just learning every day.
I think the biggest thing that also Nicole said too, and that I've learned, and I think you just echoed, is like being casual about it. And if it's like meant to be, it'll start to happen, but form that relationship and don't be like, hey, you should gift to me or like pay me for this. Like, these are my rates. Like, don't do that.
Totally. And I think, casual, just being like, hey, probably a long shot, but like would love to work with your brand. I'm the biggest fan. And I listened to your podcast with Nicole, and she talked a lot about starting organic. If you love the brand, kind of posting and tagging organically. And I think that's something that I've seen do me well in the long run, of just, if I love something, wear it, post it, be super genuine and authentic. and then good things will come.
Do you feel like you talk with other creators about like rates and like how much people are making? Like, do you feel like there's transparency within your networks of like, oh, wow, like they paid me this much, or like I didn't know I could ask for that much when you were kind of starting out?
Again, kind of twofold here because yes and no. Like when I first started out, I had no other content creator friends. So ChatGPT wasn't a thing at the time. Like I had no idea. I actually was just throwing out numbers. I think in hindsight, actually I know in hindsight, they were really small numbers compared. Like I think I just was saying, hey, yeah, like let's work together. I think I was more excited about the opportunity to work with a brand in that capacity than like actually making money off of it. Because again, I had a job. So it was never really about the making of the money. But then once I started to make more friends in the industry and kind of chat with them, I would say nobody outwardly, not nobody, but not often are people outwardly being like, oh, I got paid this way from a brand. But I do think people kind of talk like, oh, I'm here for maybe chatter like, oh, this is a paid opportunity for me as compared to kind of just like a organic opportunity.
Yeah.
And that way you kind of learn, okay, what brands have budget. Also, honestly, I defer to my management in that way too. Like they always know what brands have a finger on the pulse of like what the budget is for a brand. So I'm never really in those discussions, but I would say it's not talked about often among creators, but there's times where it comes up. I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
I feel like it's something that sometimes should be talked about more. And again, not like in public of like this, they paid me this much or in a bragging way at all.
But like transparency.
Yeah,
totally. I don't think there is in my experience, but I'm also not the type to like, I guess, start that conversation. I've been in a couple conversations where it comes up organically. But I agree. Like more transparency would be nice. But it's kind of the same in corporate fashion. It's like, or a corporate job regardless. I guess me and my coworkers were never talking about what we would make in our roles.
Yeah.
So I don't know. With my super close creator friends, like we definitely chat. But in general, I feel like there is a bit of lack of transparency.
Yeah. I think management must help so much.
Yeah.
Because they kind of can do it for you, negotiate for you, be like, she's worth more than that.
Right, totally.
Like, she doesn't do anything less than this.
So that's good.
Yeah. But I just remember talking to someone when I was like really starting out and they were like, oh, we'll start low at this number. And I was like, oh my God, that's low.
Yeah, no, I experienced the same thing. I remember, I mean,
I was like, what am I doing?
So
right now?
much of this is trial and error. Like everything in my life, I can just be like, I trial and error. So I think I started really low. And then once somebody said that to me, they were like, oh, you could be charging this. I'm like, wait, what?
I know. I was like, oh, you just changed my life.
Yeah.
Thanks for that information.
Totally.
And those are the snippets where I'm like, especially among women and careers in general. And then when you're working for yourself and you have to be your biggest advocate, I think knowing that you're worth more and can be worth more is just like a good conversation to have with people you trust.
I think going back to what you said, which kind of ties into this conversation about when did I know that this business was like, oh my goodness, this is a business. I remember hiring a lawyer because I was reading all these contracts on behalf of myself, which again, I didn't know what to look for. So I was not only negotiating on behalf of myself, but I was signing my life away on these contracts. And so I finally hired a lawyer and just seeing how much a lawyer costs. And at the time it was like kind of my hometown, like they weren't specializing in influencer contracts, but I remember being like, oh, I can afford this. Like even though I still was working, I'm like, oh, I can afford this with my social media earnings. So that was also kind of a moment where I was like, okay, I should be making XYZ because I mean, now that I have management, they have in-house, all those things. But I remember feeling like, oh, this is not only kind of like a big business moment, but also echoing, oh, I'm making money where I can afford this.
Yeah, that's a good moment too.
Yeah.
And a lawyer like adds a lot of legitimacy of like, oh, I need outside help like this.
Totally.
Wow.
Somebody really scared me though at the time, which was amazing. Just being like, hey, did you know you could be signed into exclusivity with a brand of like, you sign a contract on behalf of yourself. If I'm not reading it that closely, which I wasn't at the time, that I could be locked into something of like, oh, you can't post anything else. I mean, I was still reading them, but these contracts have a lot of
pages and pages.
Totally. And things that I'm not like well versed in to understand. But that was definitely something that was like a big moment and also something that like I'm so glad this person kind of scared me of like you should be really understanding what you're signing. And in life that is true. Any contract, like I should be really understanding. So
I've been using ChatGPT as my lawyer.
Yeah. I mean now that makes sense and now that's the thing. But I feel like when I was doing all this that wasn't around. So
I know. And like the white labeling,
right.
Like can they just use this as an ad in perpetuity? Like
1,000,000%. That's also something that I did not was not paying attention to.
Yeah.
Wasn't even told. I think that was also something interesting is that there's no rule book for kind of being in social media. So I didn't even know what those, like if somebody had rights to run my ad for forever, like that wasn't something ever somebody was like, oh, heads up, this is something you should be aware of till I signed with management. So now that that's nice, they're like looking for all that.
Yeah.
But again, trial and error, learned a lot. I'm still learning a lot.
No, it sounds like management is honestly like a really big game changer for a lot of people in the business sense as well.
Definitely.
And I'm curious about your consulting work and your partnerships because you have quite the partnership with Reformation as well. And I want to get to Nordstrom, but you recently launched a dress with them. You co-hosted one of their brand trips. So how did that kind of all begin? Because that's a really long-term partnership. It's not one video and we're done.
Totally. Reformation will forever be one of my favorite brands, period, but also one of my favorite teams to work with. They've been so lovely. It really started with, I'd always been tagging them, organic content, and then there was some paid social things at one point. And then the call that I got that really, once I had quit my job and kind of took it full time, but still wasn't taking it full seriously, that really was like a wow, pinch me moment was when they did call and said, hey, will you co-host our Ref in Residence? This was now end of May 2024 was when the trip was, early June. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, I'm on their radar enough to like co-host a trip. Like this is crazy. And again, I love and live in Reformation. So that was like a crazy moment. And then after that, I kind of got to know the team pretty well. I sort of pitched myself as a consultant and said, you know, I just quit my job. I'm really interested in this world. I would love to get more into consulting. And they are just the best. They listened and they hired me as a consultant. So I've been consulting with them off and on for a year nearly. And then from there, I had done more socials with them. Then they kind of came to me. I had pitched myself what we would talk about just like in a very casual way, like, oh, I'd love to design something for you. I had sat in certain design meetings and been like offering my feedback. So I think they'd seen me in this more of like consulting role and professional role outside of social media of offering feedback. I guess I don't know what made them decide to do this dress with me, but I had mentioned something of like, oh, it would be so fun to do something with you guys. I love the design part. Again, I'd done it in my consulting. And then they came to me and were like, you want to design one dress? Do whatever you want with it. We'll launch it. And then they said, will you host? So last year I'd co-hosted the trip and then they asked me to host it this year for Ref in Residence year 2. So it kind of was coupled with like another trip and then launching the dress. And so, yeah, it's been a really, really, really fun and rewarding partnership. They are the best. And I just feel like it's been so fun creatively. They let me do whatever I wanted with the dress. And I feel like I'm so passionate about that because it was just such a fun start to finish creative process of designing it and then all the socials around it and then launching it and hosting a lunch and just like they've been amazing partners. I'm so appreciative. So it's been such a fun partnership.
Congrats. That's like,
Thank you.
I feel like the dream when you start off, you know?
Totally. Like a pinch me moment after pinch me moment after pinch me moment of the trip. Ref in Residence is so well done and thoughtful. And then from there, just like, again, being a true fan of the brand and then consulting with them, also a pinch me moment of like, wow, they care about my opinion. And then to go into designing my own dress that they launched within the United States and the UK and Canada was so exciting. And then again, the consulting, the hosting, all the things.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it shows how you've presented yourself so well as an asset of not just like, I can make a good video for you and probably sell a few products of like, I can design a whole collection. I can be part of the team.
Totally.
The kind of like business and consulting.
And I think that consulting side really did kind of, I mean, I guess I'd be curious to ask them like what really made you want to do this dress. But I do think being with their team in more of this like hands-on role of trend forecasting and consulting and giving feedback and being able to show my industry knowledge of what I learned in the buying role probably did help.
And you just did a whole collection with Waif and Nordstrom.
Yes.
So how did that go from one dress, or there were 3 styles?
Yes.
To this whole collection.
So Waif had approached me, I want to say a year ago about this collection. I think they do one collection. Oh, don't quote me on this, but I think they do one collection a year with a influencer every fall. So I think that this has been a couple years that they do. And they asked me last fall to be the one for this fall. And Nordstrom is so near and dear to my heart. I mean, I grew up in Seattle. That is like, Nordstrom is the place in Seattle. I grew up at the sales floor there when I was 16. I joined their fashion board. I shadowed a buyer there. So Nordstrom is like absolutely so near and dear to my heart. So when they approached me, I was like, oh my gosh, so fun to create my own collection. So they were really fun to work with. Such an amazing full circle moment for me. A year in the making. Just launched on October 16th. So it's been such a fun process and really feels surreal to go into a Nordstrom and see my name on something.
Yeah, that is so exciting.
Yeah. But again, a really rewarding creative process of just like leaning into my intuition of like, this is what I think will work. And especially when it's so far out, I'm designing these pieces of like, I think this will be good at next fall. Like, let's run with it and see how it goes. So it was fun. And it was a big collection. So it's been doing really well.
You're actually reminding me, I'm pretty sure in high school, I did some fashion program at Nordstrom too,
Yes.
like after school.
Yes. That's what I did. But again, it was just like this, like
so funny.
wanting to be a part of any which way. I think I met once a month. Did yours meet once a month?
I think so. I'm like having all these memories flash back to me right now.
Right.
Actually.
My mom actually reminded me. She's like, yeah, you were on the fashion board too. And I was like, oh my gosh, how could I forget? That was like such a highlight of my high school career. But no, Nordstrom's amazing and very near and dear to my heart.
No, that's like a good tip. Join your local Nordstrom. Like,
seriously,
club.
if they still have it, like absolutely.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Wow.
It was fun to dress up, and I think it was Saturday mornings for us in Seattle. Like I would dress up and go in Saturday morning, and they would give us like our little pamphlet, and we'd flip through trends. I think it was called the BP fashion board at the time. I don't know if it's the same.
BP. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wow, I need to like go to Nordstrom.
I know. How crazy. So fun. I mean, again, so grateful for that opportunity. I think such a fun point to like, I don't know, have and hold on my resume.
Yeah, no, that's really big. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, very exciting. I'm actually wearing a sweater from the collection today. I know.
Are there any tips you have of building these longer term partnerships with brands that make so much sense for you and not just like, oh, I want to do this deal and that, but like no reformation, like I have this greater path to kind of lead through?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about authenticity and being genuine. Like, I am so head over heels for Reformation and both Nordstrom as well. Like, I think these are very full circle things for me. So I think it's like just being really authentic. These have been great. And I think in terms of long-term partnership, kind of going back to what we said, where it's like, you don't need to, but I think if you casually pitch yourself, let's say you've done a couple things with a brand you admire, get to know the team, there's a genuine relationship there, genuine love, they could see that. And then just being like, hey, like, would love to work together in this capacity, whatever that capacity may be. Maybe something more of like, I want to style for you guys or whatever it is. I think just showing you're a true fan and you want to continue that relationship, I think that's really kind of what helped me. There's just such a true love for these brands that I've worked with, and so many more that would be so fun to work in a greater, longer term capacity. But I think it's showing that side of like, wow, I would do anything to work with you guys in this way.
And when it comes to a brand wanting to work with you, what's kind of the different approaches for consulting versus social media? Like, let's say someone has a brand right now, they're listening to this and they're like, I'd love to work with her. What's kind of the differences between like, okay, you're going to consult or you're going to do social media?
So my consulting like specialty really is what I've been doing. I did some social media consulting for a fashion company that wanted to know what influencers they think aligned with their company. So that was interesting because again, that's a lot of my work as well as the social media side. So they hired me to be like, okay, what influencers do you think resonate with our brand? And then can you connect us? So I did a bit of that consulting, but really what I enjoy consulting wise is building off what I learned in my buying role, which is more trend forecasting and leaning into this like intuition that I have of like what I think will do well. Or I think what I learned at Revolve too is in a buying role is like, okay, I have this skirt that I think is really cute. Let's say a brand hires me as a consultant and says, which has happened. I worked with this lovely brand in Australia and they were like, okay, we have these styles. Can you give us feedback? And I would be like, okay, this skirt is so cute, but like the length, we need to shorten it for it to do well, or we need to lengthen it. You know, like I think I've learned these things along the way of what works and what the consumer wants. Because, you know, nothing's worse than something being really cute and then you feel like you need to alter it because the length is like, just hits awkwardly. Or sometimes it's like the sleeve length is like, oh, this is actually really going to be in to do this. So I think it's kind of this like knowledge that I have to give feedback on certain things and just kind of an eye thing. That's what I really enjoy is, so if a brand is looking to work with me, I love the like giving feedback on upcoming collections. I think that's really kind of my bread and butter for consulting. Also some trend forecasting, but then social media wise, like whole different ball game. Honestly, I love curating content for brands, especially when I'm like kind of embodying their brand DNA. So we spoke about J. Crew earlier, but I worked on a campaign with them and there wasn't that big of a creative brief, but I was like, oh, J. Crew, like fall time, I'm going to run with this. So I went to Central Park. There was this girl walking her dog. I asked for the dog to be in pictures. Like really, I know, just like the whole thing. But that's what's fun too, is I kind of get to understand the brand and understand the vision.
Yeah.
And so I have such a fun time creating content. I really do enjoy it.
People are going to start hitting you up
I
after
hope so.
this.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, I have a few like quick speed round questions
Perfect.
for you. Do you have a fashion hot take?
Ooh. I think my fashion hot take is that everything in your closet is meant to be worn. So like, I know sometimes we have that special bag or shoes or dress. I'm a strong believer of like, wear it. Do it anytime it comes up. Like, so I definitely, I'm a big advocate of wearing and using all the special things in my closet. So you'll see me out and about with that. So I guess not a hot take, but kind of.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I like that. Is there a fashion industry misconception?
Yes. I think the misconception is that, well, I've heard, which has not been my experience, that it's been unfriendly, that it can be unfriendly. I have found that it is so friendly and lovely. I've met so many incredible, smart, talented, extremely welcoming people in the fashion industry. So I would say that is a misconception that I have found different.
I agree. Everyone's like so nice.
So nice. So great. Yeah.
People make it seem like it's going to be really scary.
No, it's awesome. Like, it's amazing.
What is the best advice you've received?
Okay, so this is something my fiance's mom said recently to me, and now I'm running with it as my biggest life advice. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Just like in the sense of anything I want to do, like go for it kind of is how I've interpreted it in my own life. But yeah, anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
I like that. Go all
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, go all in. Exactly.
Do you have a resource recommendation for people? So like a book, podcast, newsletter?
So again, I need to check on this. Business of Fashion had online courses for different areas of the industry. At the time I did the buying one. I think LinkedIn is a really interesting source now. There's so much more to see on it. But Business of Fashion, if they still have these courses, yes. I think LVMH also has a course that I recently saw. But any online course you can take or see or just like dive in deeper on something you're interested in, 110% recommend it.
Especially if they're free.
Exactly.
The one, sometimes there's like scammy ones out there, but if it's like a real organization.
Like, I think Vogue had certain, maybe not courses, so to speak, but like videos on certain topics. Also, masterclass. There's got to be a few fashion people on there. I haven't checked recently, but that could be a fun one where it's not necessarily a course, but just like you're really learning about somebody's role.
Yeah, totally. I like that.
Yeah.
And then do you have any upcoming announcements?
My biggest upcoming announcement was just my Wave Nordstrom collection that just launched. So as of now, no, but stay tuned.
Yeah, something's in the works.
Yeah, totally.
And where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok, Styled Sara. I'm also on Substack, Styled Sara. And I have a website, Styled Sara. Anything Styled Sara, you can find me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad we could do this.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.